Hello, and welcome to our podcast slash videocast here on the CareStack podcast channel. This is Jim Gerson from CareStack. I'm thrilled to have as my guest today, Mr. Sasha Tapie, who is a CEO and acting COO of TLC Dental. In my own words, I'll say it, Sasha, on your behalf. You have a thriving multi-location group in South Florida. And so, Sasha, thank you so much for being our guest today. We really appreciate it.
It's my pleasure. And Jim, I think I owe you and your team quite a few because of what you have done for us with our platform. You guys have bent over backwards and gone above and beyond any expectations that we ever had. So the gratitude is actually mine. So I think you should say you're welcome instead of thank you.
You got it. You're welcome. So the title of our program today is Leading the Pack with Innovation for Patients and Staff. And when selecting this topic, I really thought that Sasha and his team were kind of the best fit for talking about how to harness technology to welcome patients to the practice, reduce the stress level, make everyone feel really comfortable with, dental in our situation that we're in now currently. So Sasha, I think the first place to start is to mention for our listeners and our viewers out there that you have over 2 decades of experience in dentistry and working with hundreds of practices. And now you've transitioned into being the practice principal and CEO of TLC Dental, which is an established group like we talked about, and that you've built and expanded. Would you mind sharing for our listeners and viewers out there your journey in specific?
So I'm going to take you back in my journey to when I was 8 years old. And it may sound a little crazy, but I had the privilege, and I use the word privilege or great fortune, to discover what my purpose was in life. I had a neighbor of mine, I won't mention his name, but we lived in a building, and his doorknob to doorknob, we were 28 feet apart. And for me, math came very, very easy. And my friend was struggling with math, even though it was so simple for me. And I was trying to tutor him. And finally, in my frustration, I said, I don't get it. How come you don't see this? And he said something very interesting to me. He goes, what do you mean see it? And to me, I see math. It makes sense to me. And then I realized that he didn't see math the way I saw math. That being said, I asked him a whole bunch of questions. How does he comprehend math? What does it mean to him? I asked him to try to explain math to me. And I discovered very quickly that he spoke, and I used the word language, in a different language when it came to that. But after we went through all of the tutoring, he started to become great in math. And to the point that you fast forward now, 40 some odd years later, he actually has a PhD in mathematics. But the point isn't the fact that he has a PhD in mathematics. The point is I discovered my purpose in life was helping other people become better versions of themselves. And through that journey, I realized that different people have different ways of thinking. They have different things that are important to them. They have different modalities, meaning are they a big picture person? Are they all the little details? And they also have different value systems. And those value systems are what's important to them, which leads to how they communicate, which takes me to where I am today. Like I said, at 8 years old, I discovered my purpose in life was helping other people become better versions of themselves. And it was very selfish for me because it gave me such an incredible reward to see people succeed. Fast forward to my 2 decades in dentistry, and for the record, I am not a dentist, but I've been a principal of practices historically. I spent a great amount of time, and it was a great privilege to serve this industry, which has treated me so well. And I have coached a few hundred practices, and I would say, and this is with ego, very, very successfully. But about 5 years ago, I decided I wanted to go back into practice ownership, which is where I could make the biggest difference. And it was no longer a matter of trading hours for dollars, but it was more a matter of what impact can I make? What legacy can I leave behind? Dr. Stephen Mucky and I met a little bit over 5 years ago. I don't want to use the word, we had a professional courtship for a few months because I figured the next place I stop, I'm going to make my next home. And when I joined TLC almost 5 years ago, one of the first things that we changed immediately, is we stopped putting the patients first. Now, most people at first blush would listen to that and say, what are you, crazy? Because the challenge that you have is people are too often in the workplace so focused on CYA that they don't focus on what's best, and they do enough not to get themselves in trouble. But when you put the patients first, what really makes your business, what really makes your practice successful. It's everybody in the practice, not the people outside the practice. It's your dentists, it's your hygienists, it's your dental assistants, it's your front desk, it's your administrative staff, it's your insurance staff. But speaking to all of that, the one thing I did immediately is I let the team know that they were first. Now, it took a little while for them to believe it. And we created a very, very strong culture that focused on the outcome, not so much the process. And I gave the communication tools to the team, which started first with their personal growth and development. Because if you can make a team member a better version of themselves personally, what do you think happens in the work world? And part of what I've learned very much so in communication, I call it WIFM, W-I-F-M, right? WIFM is what's in it for me. So finding out what the value system of my team members was and giving them what it is that they wanted. Because if you give somebody what they want, they have too much to lose, so they're not going to mess it up. If you just put them in a position and just give them a job, shame on you. And it goes back to the old acronym, teach a person how to fish, don't fish for them. And as I got to know all of our team members, and we're 98 people strong, we started to discover what they wanted. And I told people, don't tell me what I want to hear. Tell me what you want. Describe what your career looks like. Describe what it feels like. And describe what you want in a work environment. And as we started going down that path and they started realizing that they really came first, we created an incredibly closely knit TLC family. And as a TLC family, everyone understands that our first responsibility is not to the patients, but we'll get to the patients in a moment. Our first responsibility is to each other.
Okay.
And we've got 7 locations in total right now. But if somebody does something in my Hollywood location that has a negative impact on the patient, it could very easily impact my Coral Springs office because someone hears about something that we did poorly, or bad reputation or bad experience, and they don't go there. And once the team truly realized and felt like a family, that we weren't a pow-pow environment, and we're all for, hey, if you make a mistake, it's wonderful because you've learned some way not to do it again. And when we embraced a culture that truly was open, where we solicited our team members' input, and they helped us design the ideal practice. We literally shut down all of our locations in 2016, spent a whole day together as a team and said, hey, let's design the ultimate practice. What does it look like? What does it feel like? What does your work look like? And what kind of environment do we have? So we made some commitments to each other and agreements. And I go back to, how do we make sure that we take great care of each other to ensure that we have a career, not just for the next month and a paycheck next week, but how do we have a long career? And we created opportunities for growth for a lot of our team members. And you know, it's a little bit of a funny story, but one of my higher performers when I was first there, this girl was so incredibly smart. Everything we taught her, she learned like this, right? But what was really fascinating was when I told her, I said, hey, I want you to find your replacement. And her face turns all red. She says, what did I do wrong? I said, you didn't do anything wrong. I said, I want you to find your replacement so I can build you up. Which goes to the next paradigm that we changed, is this is going to sound like a little bit of a horrific question, but it's a great illustration. Imagine someone sitting next to me, right? And I put a gun to their head and I pull the trigger. Everyone would say that's wrong. But then I'm telling you that this person is about to kill 50 people. Then you're going to say that's right. But then I say this person is your brother. So we don't believe in right and wrong in our culture. There's just different perspectives, because if I knew what you knew, had the experience that you had, and had the knowledge that you had, I would probably do the same exact thing as you. So we created a culture of curiosity, not of right and wrong. So what happens? People get excited to come to work. They look forward to coming to work. They understand the responsibilities that they have to each other. What do you think happens to the patient experience at that point?
Yeah, it just rises to a new level, right?
And when you walk into a dental office, all of us have had this experience. We walk into a restaurant, we walk into a retail store, or a dental practice, or a medical practice. You know right away when that tension is high because you can cut it with a knife. And listen, here's reality. 62% of patients are scared, nervous, or apprehensive when they walk into our practice.
Right, well put.
If the tension is high, what happens? It becomes even more harrowing for them. So that was the first step in creating growth. The other step in creating growth was we operate not on rules, we operate on something called ROBE, R-O-B-E. R is short for results, O is short for outcome, B is the boundaries, what are the boundaries that I have, and E is setting the expectation. So if we have a ROBE, we focus on the outcome, not how you do it. Now, there may be an easier way, and you'll hear this at TLC all the time, work smarter, not harder. We're not looking for our employees to work harder. We're looking for them to work smart and utilize whatever tools are out there to make them more effective and more efficient. That being said, one of the things that we're exploring as a practice, because we've literally had 20 to 25% growth year over year over year. When it came to working smarter, not harder, the biggest obstacle we had was our practice management platform. Now, typically when a patient came in, now we take HMOs, we take PPOs, and we take fee for service. But as everyone in the dental industry knows, there's so many different insurance plans, so many different variables, and so many different check boxes that you need to check off that on any treatment plan that wasn't a very simple treatment plan, typically our patients were waiting 20 to 30 minutes for that treatment plan. Since we've jumped over to the CareStack platform, my average patient, by the time they get to the front, that treatment plan is already ready. Think about what that does for the patients.
Sure. Sasha, do you mind if I interrupt? I think I'd like to come back to that later, if it's all right with you, when we talk about technology. Fine. Something that you really caught my attention was the fact that when you came in, you brought this kind of culture of change into the organization, right? Change should be embraced, not shunned. I think that's really important. And so I've seen as a third party how you've instilled this ethos where the prospect of change is embraced by your employees, right? How they've responded to the current climate and the challenges that we have. Can you talk to our listeners and viewers about change management and how do you instill a culture, with employees that have been doing something one way, right, to embrace change and make it part of like their vernacular or their everyday?
So a big part of our culture, and we spend a lot of time with our team members, we spend a lot of time training. As a matter of fact, every single day, we have a 15-minute training session with all of our leadership, and once a month with all of the different groups, whether it be admin, whether it be dental assistants or doctors or hygienists, focused specifically on personal growth, right? And one of the things that our team members understand is that in order to grow, you need to step outside of your comfort zone. And all of us throughout life have had different things that have impacted us, that have forced us to step outside of that comfort zone. But when we go and we look back at that comfort zone, was it really, really so comfortable? And I go back to our ethos of working smarter, not harder.
Sure.
If you want to sweep water uphill, you can, but it's an awful lot of work. And too often when we look at the things that we could be doing, do we want to sweep it uphill? Or do we want to say, let's let it come downstream a little bit, pick it up in a bucket, and then walk it to the top? It's going to be a little bit more work now, but once I get that water to the top, the easier way, the smarter way, we just pour it down the other side. So we're always looking for opportunities. And it also goes back to that ethos that we encourage people to disagree with us. We encourage people to challenge us. And part of what I failed to mention is that we believe in a servant leader culture. So when you believe in servant leadership, the employees don't work for me, I work for them. And it's selfish, yes, because the better I can make them at what they do, the happier I can make them as an individual, the more successful we can make their personal life. What kind of person shows up that day? Because they don't just come to work, they get to go to work. And that's how we have embraced a culture of change, that we're always looking for things to help improve, even if it's little things. There's a Japanese word called kaizen, which is the art of continuous improvement.
Right.
And my thought process is if I could improve 1% per day, and you figure there's an average of 20 work days in a month, in 5 months, we could have 100% improvement. And that's how we've had over the last 4 years, over 120% growth in the same locations.
Wow, that's
without
phenomenal.
Expanding our footprint.
Yeah. Excellent. Thanks for speaking to that. Let's shift gears and talk a little bit about technology modernization. I know that's part of our title of today is innovation. You certainly have been at the leading edge in the business in embracing technology. Why now? What's important from your perspective of incorporating technology in this climate?
So I go back to our ethos of working smarter, not harder. But part of working smarter, not harder, is you can only improve what you measure. So the first challenge we had with the platform that we were on before is every time I wanted to generate any kind of report, it was literally a Herculean task. Go figure out what the metrics are that you're looking to pull, right? Yes, you could possibly save that report, but you'd have to change the dates, you'd have to change this. Then you dump it into Excel, and then you spend a couple of hours in Excel trying to get some meaningful data out or charting. So that being said, there are a lot of add-ins we could put into our software. So we ended up spending more money for an add-in that was disjointed. We could still pull the data from our practice management software, but we spent money on this add-in to create all these custom reports, right? So then we start pulling the custom reports. So now it's a different platform that you have to educate somebody else on, right? When you look at the working smarter, not harder, technology allows us to confirm, and we call it reservations in our world. They're not appointments with a doctor, they're a reservation. But to confirm the reservations, you don't call everybody. You send them a text, you send them an email, give an opportunity to use technology to confirm that so you don't have to confirm all these things. Well, that was another add-on that we're spending $300 a month per location on. And then when you start factoring all the little different things that we wanted to use to take advantage of technology, to speed up the process, and I want you to think about this. We were in 2019, and when someone filled out a medical history, we literally had to have them write it, right? Then we would take it, then we would scan it in. And listen, human error happens. Once in a while, we would find someone's medical history in someone else's chart. Now, it's not a HIPAA violation because it doesn't leave our organization, but what if the patient could do all this stuff at home? What we used to do is manually email them all the information they needed for a new patient, all their medical history, all the related paperwork that they had to fill out. And the people, I know this statistically, that 60% of people don't have printers at home anymore. But the ones that did have it would print it out at home, fill everything out. Why not just allow the technology to do it? And my question is, why isn't there things out there that can do it? Again, when we went over to the CareStack platform, number one, it was just one platform that we had to learn, right? Number two, cost, significantly less. But when I look at performance, when I have everything baked into one thing, where number one, we automatically send out a link so they can go into their own portal, and the patients can look at their own portal. They can look at what's outstanding. They can pay their bill. We do all the confirmations directly through CareStack, right? And yes, some people may not confirm by text or email. We have the ability to text through CareStack. Our patients love it. And then here's a beautiful thing since COVID. And by the way, kudos to you guys, because when you asked us, what do we need? One of the things that we said is, hey, we want teledentistry and we want curbside check-in. You guys did it for us in 2 or 3 weeks, not us, but for all of your clients. Our patients love it. A patient literally will show up 20 minutes before their scheduled reservation. They'll get a text message. When they show up, they hit the letter C, and our patients, with a few rare exceptions, go straight back to their operatory. They feel safe. They don't worry, and people prefer waiting in their cars. And here's a beautiful thing. My reception areas, most of my offices, I'm going to be able to add an additional operatory because we really don't need them anymore. And it goes back to the technology. And the other challenge you have is when you hire a new employee, right? I'm not going to mention the software packages, but so many of these software packages are so customizable, which is wonderful, but it's also a curse because you have someone coming over that's used this package, but you've customized it so much that it becomes completely foreign. And the learning curve was 3 months for most people. So for most administrative new hires, 3 months was just spent training. There were zero productivity. With CareStack, you have the CareStack University. It's an online tool. It's a bunch of videos. It's a bunch of tests. I can see how they did. I can assign them assignments. And I'm onboarding people into our software, usually within less than a week's time. Within 2 weeks' time, it's kind of like driving a new car. Where are the buttons? But within 2 weeks' time, they become familiar with it, and they're productive almost immediately, even if they've never used the platform. And that's an aspect of the love. I love the fact that everything is cloud-based. During COVID, right, we never shut down completely. We were still there for our patients because we had a moral and ethical obligation to make sure that dental patients didn't go to an emergency room because we didn't want to put them in harm's way for them to get sick. Yes, we scaled down our company very quickly, but here's what's beautiful. We're fully centralized. My entire back office was able to work from home. My schedulers, right? We have a centralized, and I don't want to use the word call center, we call it patient central. But patient central was able to answer their calls from home. We didn't have to put any of our team members in harm's way. Now that we understand a lot more about coronavirus, there are things that we can do to protect ourselves. And knock on wood, out of almost 100 team members, not one of them has contracted coronavirus yet. It's probably just only a matter of time. But CareStack allowed us to never stop operational. And a great example of that too was it's cloud-based, right? Our network went down and we have backups on every one of our offices, but they were doing construction, so they cut the cables to both of our internet service providers. What did I do? I created a quick little hotspot on my phone and the office was still operational.
Wow.
So we never went down.
That's impressive. Yeah, thank you for speaking to that. While we're on this topic, it's not a secret to our listeners or viewers that you're a CareStack clients.
No,
but I have to ask this question.
I disagree with you.
Okay.
I'm a CareStack evangelist.
Evangelist, all right.
You allowed my employees, I want you to think about all my front desk people. Sometimes because they care so much about our patients, would get frustrated because the patient's waiting there. They know the patient's in discomfort. They know the patient wants to go. The patient is sitting there tapping their foot. So instead of 20 or 30 minutes to put together a complicated treatment plan, we're whipping it out in minutes, and all the fees and the fee schedules are correct. I'm an evangelist because you guys have saved me probably over $150,000 a year on all of the related service. I had my my cloud-based services. I was paying for Azure. I was paying, and I'm not going to mention the other software platforms. So you saved us over probably $140,000, $150,000 a year. But your software works as advertised. It's intuitive. I don't need to go to 3 or 4 people to pull reports and have my controller massage something in Excel. I can just look at my dashboards. When I want to know something, I could literally be on my iPhone, boom, boom, boom. I've got the report. I've got the data. And we've created a whole bunch of KPIs that instead of it being a one-day process, I can literally pull it out like this. So I wouldn't say that I'm an enthusiast. I'm an evangelist because you help me make a difference in my patients' lives. 80% of patients that don't say yes to treatment before they leave the office will not do it.
Right.
Dentistry is never cheaper than it's going to be today. And the reality is, if we get it done now, it's cheaper for the patient. And now we don't have patients that are frustrated. So it's helped us escalate our growth that much more. And we're able to do it with fewer team members, because not all of my team members have been able to come back because we have a lot of single mommies and single daddies that can't leave the house.
Yeah, so thank you for speaking to that, interrupting me. I love the evangelist title. You assigned it, not me, so I'll take it. But obviously, we're not a well-known name. We're competing in a marketplace with established Goliaths, not without naming names, that are distributed by the 2 largest dental distribution companies. And so why did you choose CareStack, a relative unknown at the time?
So I'll go back a little bit in history. We came on board with CareStack in September of last year. We had actually looked at CareStack about 2 years earlier. And keep in mind that before my 2 decades in dentistry, I actually had 15 years in IT. I was actually a database programmer. That being said, I loved what CareStack had conceptually, but they weren't ready for us yet. And when we were looking for a platform, we were incredibly frustrated. We were very close to signing up with one of your competitors, and we had a little team put together. I said, hey, let's revisit CareStack. Let's see where they've come. And when I saw how far that you guys had come in the span of about 20 months, it was amazing. I checked a lot of your references, and until the rubber meets the road, you never know what's really going to happen. But I chose to work with CareStack for a couple of reasons. Number one, your platform is outstanding. You never exaggerated anything that your software could do. You also told me about some of the things that are still a work in progress. And do I want to be a tiny fish in a huge ocean that if I need help, I mean, let's be real. We talk about some of those larger platforms. If I need help with something, I have to put a ticket in, and I might get a call 2 days later. With you guys, if I have an urgent issue, I pick up the phone and someone is calling us within minutes. And I'd rather be a fish in a small pond, because your customer service, you spoke about it in the beginning. And I said, well, we'll see. You guys have exceeded all of our expectations. So any challenge we have, you guys are there for us. And you support us in such an incredible way. And that's something that I trust will continue, because as you're continuing to grow, we're still getting that same level of support. The other thing that I loved about you guys is you solicited not just us, but a lot of other practices to say, hey, what do you want to see here? So you work very similar to the culture that we have, is tell me what you want. Let me see if I can give it to you.
Yeah, thank you for speaking to that and giving some more granularity on it. So we talk about implementation of practice management software. It's like replacing the central nervous system of a dental practice. You know, I had one dentist joke with me that, no one wakes up in the morning with a fistful of cash, Sasha, and says, let's change software. It's going to be easy, right? I think we need to embrace that. A couple that
there are challenges with it, though.
Yeah.
But the challenges are managing the expectations. And one of the things that we did is we went live with one location first.
Okay.
We were creating our super users. And from there, I don't care what you're transitioning into. Churchill, I think, said it best, because the best laid battle plans always go to pieces once you enter the battlefield. Your team set the expectations. You took all the data. We trained everybody. The mistake that we made with the first office, though, is we put out the CareStack University to everybody. We told everybody they had to do the training, but we should have more closely monitored, because most of my doctors on the first round did not go through the training. And wow, the first week for them was like walking in a brand new house with all the lights off.
Okay.
But because of the mistakes that the doctors made by not embracing the training, we shared those lessons with all the other associates before we went live at the other locations. And when we went live at the other locations, everybody was prepared. Now, granted, the first week was tough, but you guys had somebody there for us that we could lean on, that we could ask questions. And within 2 weeks, we were pretty much running as if we had always used it. Your learning curve is very, very low on CareStack. And it's logical. It makes sense. But the most important thing, and I insisted this to my team, we're not going to try to bend CareStack to the way we used to work. We're going to operate and follow the workflow that CareStack has. Because there are a lot of things that we were doing. I like to use the word bass backwards, so I'm not cursing. But there are a lot of things that we were doing bass backwards because that was our workaround. And I said, we're never going to create a workaround. We all agree to it. And we're going to use the software and we're going to follow the workflow that's built into the software. So this way we're not sweeping water uphill, but we're running down a stream in the same direction as the stream. That worked incredibly well for us. And the conversion process, I got to tell you, it went incredibly smooth. Yes, we had a few hiccups, but when you look at the thousands and thousands of patients that we moved over, considering the fact that it was only in the double digits on the issues, and we fixed those manually, but part of that was also our data was bad too. So we also have to take ownership of that, but the support you guys gave was incredible.
Yeah, when you're moving from one system to another, it's like moving from one home or an apartment to another apartment. It's an opportunity to clean up, right? Throw some things out. And so, yeah, I think for all the people out there, we don't want to convince you implementation is going to be smooth, 100%. There's going to be bumps in the road, and it's how we respond to those, like you mentioned. Thank you for speaking to that.
But here was what was really great though, Jim. We converted our largest office first, 21 operatories. We do pedo there, we do oral surgery there, we do ortho there, we do specialty there. And we said, let's put it there. Let's figure out what those potholes are. And then what we started doing is we started rotating team members around into the office. So when we rolled out the other 6 locations, people had already used it. They're already familiar with it, with the exception of maybe a few of the doctors, but all of our assistants, all of our front desk staff, all of our hygienists, they all got a chance to use it. And it's very intuitive and it's very easy to use.
It's amazing how time flies, right? So you're almost finishing year 1 on CareStack.
Yeah,
I remember
here, huh?
it's getting to that point, right? So you're
I'm
reflecting
getting old.
back.
Time is going too fast.
This year is crazy. It's hard to remember what way is up some days, right? So just curious, as you reflect back on 10 or 11 months on CareStack, what are the benefits that you're seeing across the group? I know you spoke to some of them earlier about the cost savings, but intended or unattended, if you could maybe give a little bit more.
So let's talk about treatment acceptance.
Okay.
In the dental world, and these are ADA statistics. These are not statistics pulled off of some fake Google site. These are the ADA statistics. If you measure treatment acceptance by dollars presented versus dollars actually accepted, when you ask most dentists, they would say 80%. That number is so far from the truth. The number is actually 24.8%.
Wow.
It's like having a restaurant where 4 people show up and only 1 person says yes. So treatment acceptance is what's helped our growth a lot. And we're not really working more hours, we're just working smarter because more patients are saying yes to treatment. And it's a huge benefit to the patient because if you do the treatment now, it's not going to get worse. So we win and the patient wins. But there's so many different struggles. And imagine being a patient, you're in discomfort, you want a treatment plan, you sit down with a doctor, you're nervous, you're in discomfort, I'll say that again, you're anxious, and then I make you wait another 20 or 30 minutes for a treatment plan. Yeah. What's that going to do to treatment acceptance?
Right.
It's going to hurt it. And
doubt's
when we can spit out,
doubt's going to creep in. What's going on back there? Are they trying to make?
And then, of course, the doubt, like, okay, what are they adding to my bill? Are they searching to add codes that just so they can pad the bill versus just spitting it out? Very often, the patient will be in the chair. We'll have the treatment plan to them, and they say yes or no. And it allows us to do a lot more same-day treatment. It's allowed us to increase our treatment acceptance. When I first started with TLC, our treatment acceptance was the ADA average, just a little bit higher. It was 25.4%. Okay. Our treatment acceptance today is 44%. Think about how much better we're taking care of our patients. Think about how much better off our patients are for getting the treatment done now. And as a business, we're succeeding because when we have so many people saying yes to treatment, they're telling their friends, they're telling their brother, their sister, their husband, their wife. So it's driving a lot more business.
You're also minimizing their exposure, right? Because they're there already. The clinician scrubbed in, the PPEs, you're giving a lower chance of being exposed to something. So that's really a benefit to them as well.
Yep, and all of the above. And it's great because when patients have questions, we get a lot fewer phone calls since we started with CareStack. When a patient calls about a billing question, we'll always help them resolve it on the phone, but we send them the link to their patient portal, like, hey, if you want, you can go in here and look at it yourself. And
Well
it's a
put.
real convenience for the patient.
Yeah, so we're coming to kind of the end here. And one of the things I want to frame for our listeners and our viewers is that, I'm biased. I work for CareStack. And what I would tell everyone out there is the software tomorrow is going to be better than it is today. That's going to be the case. And because we're cloud-based and not on-premise, it's easier for us to make improvements like Sasha mentioned, or take enhancements and put them into action than having to do like these massive updates. So this is a question I wanted to ask you, and I know what the principles of our business will be listening. So Sasha, I know you have a wish list. It's not a secret. What are the areas that you'd like to see enhanced in the near future with CareStack to even make it more powerful for TLC and for your business?
There are a lot of enhancements that we've asked for that you have done already. And for those, we're incredibly, incredibly grateful. One of the things that I know is in the pipeline right now, because we've been part of, you guys have come to us for a lot of feedback, is creating that custom dashboard. The dashboards you have right now are powerful, but the custom dashboards will give me what I want. And the other thing that you kind of have already to some extent, but I think it's going to be a lot more powerful, is for me to create a custom report and have it emailed out automatically on any given day, whether it's a daily report where I could segregate, okay, this report goes to Dr. X, this report goes to Dr. Y. So those reports, and also reports for me, there's so many things that I can track in CareStack that I couldn't track in other things. Like we have contests for a hygienist, whoever schedules the most visits in a week, and there's a financial reward for them, but everybody wins because we can see how many reservations were scheduled by different individuals. I could see that before, but today it takes me 30 seconds to pull the report. Before, it was a Herculean task scrubbing through all the data. So your customized dashboards are a big, big, huge plus.
Yeah, thank you for speaking to that. And I just want to encourage everyone out there that you have to think of CareStack as like bone in your body remodeling at all times, right? It's a growing organism, I guess, is the best way to put it. When I reflect back on where we were when I started here a little bit over 2 years ago to where we are now, it's hard for me to recognize the product, really. It's improved so much. And again, it's coming from users, right? It's not from us sitting in an ivory tower thinking about what's going to make it better.
Oh, and by the way, one of the things I absolutely love about your platform too is, and our patients love it, is that they can actually request their own, I'm going to use your word, appointment. I hate that word. It's a curse word in my world, but they can schedule their own reservations.
Right.
And I know in the pedo world, there's so many mommies that get home late or they're working or they're, doing homeschooling that even after hours, they can schedule reservations or request them and see what's available to them. So it's amazing to me that there are only a few platforms out there that can do similar things to what you can do. And I would say to you, the fact that you guys are always continuing to grow, you're always soliciting your clients' feedback, what works, what doesn't work. And there's been a couple of things that we said, hey, this isn't working so well for us. And I love the fact that you just rolled it back. And it wasn't just us, it was obviously a consortium. Sure. You as a group are incredibly inquisitive and you're always trying to make our lives easier. And you're always trying to get us, and I'm going to use the TLC quote, to work smarter, not harder. And for that, we're incredibly grateful. The whole team is incredibly grateful.
Well, Sasha, thank you so much for being our guest today on our podcast / video recording. Again, leading the pack with innovation for patients and staff. On behalf of CareStack, it's been a tremendous pleasure speaking with you, and we look forward to continuing this journey together. So
now,
thank
Jim,
you.
There is one thing I want to say, because
Sure.
If your principals are going to be looking at this, I need to give kudos to your entire team for them going above and beyond on everything that we needed. I don't think they get appreciated enough. Hopefully they do, but a big thank you to your entire team, your entire development team, because so many different individuals, when I've asked them for assistance, they were always there. And if they didn't have an answer, they found someone who did. So please extend my gratitude to all of them. It's probably the only opportunity I can speak to all of them at once.
You got it. Thank you very much. I really appreciate being our guests. And so thank you for everyone out there. Continue to listen to the CareStack podcast channel. We're on Spotify, Google Podcasts, and obviously you can get it right from our website. So thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Jim, we'll talk soon.